efforts and energy for this advisory board.
Well, this meeting is called to order.
Update, but we're going to skip a little bit and we're going to for update. Real briefly, just when I say elevator, I mean going to the second floor, not all the way to the top. Phyllis and Candace are going to show us the way, and we're just going to go right around the table. Know who we are. And one note about microphones, please make sure that you speak directly into them. If your face moves, the microphone needs to move with you. They don't do well picking up, going to the side like this. It just doesn't work very well. All right, Phyllis?
I'm Phyllis Britt. Oh, sorry. I'm Phyllis Britt. This is my 5th year on the CAB, my 1st year as chair. I came to the CAB from a totally non-technical background. I was a newspaper editor, so I ask a lot of stupid questions. Just have to live with that.
I'm Candace Cave. I am the CAB vice chair. This is year 5 for me, and I work for Aiken County government.
Bear Von Tool, I think this is my 2nd year, retired history professor, chair of the long-term mission budget subcommittee, which is absolutely desperate for members.
I'm Pat Kilroy. This is my 1st year, and I roll cigars.
Good afternoon, Michelle Bush. This is my 3rd year with CAB. I am a retired educator, 22 years as a history teacher. But before I officially retired, I spent the last 3 years out at Savannah River site with SRR.
Hello, I'm Marty Ball. I'm a retired science teacher. This is my 1st year on.
Carlos Cato, off and on with the CAB about 7 years. Never spent any time on the site, but am a 3-generation site legacy. Part of my family land was actually in Old Ellington, where part of the site is built.
And I'm John Thomas on the CAB. I am the chair of the facilities disposition and site remediation, and we're also looking for members. Thanks.
John Richards, I'm with EPA Region 4 in Atlanta. I'm the lead project manager in our Superfund office.
Mike Bunny, I'm the Environmental Management Savannah River Operations Office Manager, and I've been here for 6 years and 3 months.
County. I'm Amy Boyette. I am the Director of the Office of External Affairs for DOE at Savannah River site. I've been at the site for 33 years, and Augusta and North Augusta, that area is my home, and so I'm just glad to see all the new CAB members here and all the ones who have been serving along. It's good to have all of you. Look forward to working with you.
My name's Greg O'Quinn. I'm with South Carolina DHEC, and I'm in the regional office in Aiken.
Good afternoon. I'm Susan Fulmer with the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control, and I'm the Federal Facility Agreement Manager for the state.
Good morning, good afternoon, and I'm Ken Sajwan, a professor at Savannah State University for 33 years. So in CAB, this is my 5th year. For hazardous waste subcommittee, looking forward to working.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sade Shofia, my 2nd year on the CAB, and I am executive officer at.
Good afternoon. My name is Carolyn Fortson. I'm probably the least technical person here because I'm a librarian. But I'm the regional director for the Allendale Hampton Jasper Library System. Was very curious about the plant because it's in the area. I have family that work there. And you hear all these things about the plant, so I said, I'm going and see what I can learn about it. So it's been a real learning experience for me, but I'm still learning. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kevin DeLagle. I'm a project manager for Como Hotels and Resorts. I lived in New York for a long time working for Como, moved back to the area, to Augusta 2 years ago when we started the Coalition for Action in downtown Augusta, a volunteer citizens action group to help clean up downtown Augusta and to improve the area. So I'm happy to be here.
Hello, I'm Kim Ray. I'm the Waste Management Chair. This is my 3rd year on the CAB. So we are also recruiting for committee members.
Hello, I'm Scott McKay. I'm the Dean of Sciences and Engineering and Associate Vice Chancellor of Research at USC Aiken, first year.
Hi, I'm Nate Hartley. I'm a retired IT professional, and I'm glad to be here. This is my first year as well.
Yeah, you have to say hi too.
Hello, my name is Juanita Campbell, and I am your CAB administrator. Technically, this would be my 2nd year with the CAB. I was a member, and now I actually work for Savannah River Site as a contractor, and I'm very proud to be with you all today.
And my name is James Tanner, Department of Energy. I'm your meeting facilitator for today, and I have been working with the Citizens Advisory Board for a little over 13 years. So, with that, now that we know who we all are, Phyllis, are you ready?
It is, I'm gonna get. Okay, I've been busy, I guess, the last month or so. I attended, first, I want to welcome all the new members. I'm so glad you're here. Nice to have a complement of interesting folks who, as I gathered from the orientation, ask good questions and have good input. So it's going to be a fun experience, at least for me. In the last couple of months, I have been to 2 meetings, well, went to orientation, but the big meeting that I went to was the Ohio meeting of the chairman of all of the citizens advisory boards throughout the United States for nuclear facilities all over meet twice a year. And my first official meeting was recently in Ohio. We were able to tour the Portsmouth, Ohio facility and the old Fernald facility, which I had never heard of actually until I mentioned it to my husband. He said, oh yeah, what did I know? Anyway, I had gone last year in place of our vice chair because he had family issues that kept him away, and so last year it was in Washington, D.C., which was interesting, but it was mainly the official business meetings, and we did get an opportunity. One of the DOE folks took us on a walking tour of D.C. because we were close to the Smithsonian monuments and that sort of thing. So we did a walking tour, but that was pretty much it. This year in Ohio, they were incredible. They did all kinds of wonderful things and had all sorts of experiences for us. We had 2 big receptions and took us on 2 tours, one of the Portsmouth facility, which is interesting because they may be even further along than we are as far as environmental management cleanup. They were a gaseous diffusion facility. So they did not have reactors as we did, but they have a lot of the same kinds of problems. The only biggest thing that caught my attention was they had these huge buildings. Apparently, that kind of facility requires that. It's difficult to explain just how big the buildings were, but they've taken down one. They're still working on D&D on the rest of them. So it was interesting to see how they're progressing, what their kinds of problems were. Let's see. One of the things that we talked about a lot were very similar issues that we have as far as they're in the middle of cleaning up, or trying to figure out how to reindustrialize, trying to figure out, they continue to try to keep the community engaged. That's always an issue for us. And so one of the things that came up, which some of you may be interested in, that I thought was fascinating, was one of the DOE officials reported that in the ongoing research for a final repository for high-level waste, since Yucca Mountain apparently is a no-go for the future, they're issuing, I guess it's an RFP, request for proposals for volunteers, for somebody to take on the final repository for high-level waste. And of course, the first question that came up was, what happens when nobody volunteers? And have an answer for that. So it'll be interesting to watch that as it goes along. We were able, while we were there, to visit. There are a lot of indigenous peoples in the area, have been for a very long time. So one of the places we visited was a place that had been burial mounds. And I guess I don't know a lot about archaeology, because one of the things they did at these burial mounds is they dug them all up, took all the artifacts out, and then recreated them, kind of like Williamsburg, Virginia did. Williamsburg, the recreation, it is not an actual archaeological experience. They've recreated it. They didn't leave what was already there. And these mounds are the same way. They rebuilt the mounds so you can see what they did look like at one time. But it was very interesting, because we have indigenous folks around, probably more here than we do in the Aiken area, but it's interesting to see the history, because those mounds date back a couple of thousand years. Then we were able to go to the Fernald site, which is it's been turned over to legacy management because they're that far along. They're kind of done. But one thing that I found very interesting, at SRS, they put all the reactors in the center of 360 square miles. Is that about right? Yeah, okay. Anyway, so they're all in the center, so there's a big buffer of trees and all kinds of things between what was going on at the site and the communities around it. In Fernald, and really in the Portsmouth site as well, their farms right there. People at Fernald mentioned that they used to have a problem of the cows would roam onto site property, and they'd get a call from the government saying, please come get your animals. So I thought that was interesting. Fernald was built early during the Cold War, and so they were still kind of doing trial and error, trying to figure out what to do. They have a very big organization of people who have kept watch, because there have been a couple of problems through the years. So it was interesting to talk to them, since we don't have as many folks like that at SRS. Sorry, excuse me. I apologize. I've had a cough for a month. Anyway, again, we talked about common concerns, mainly community engagement, how to recruit people for the cab, that sort of thing. A lot of the problems throughout all the sites all over the nation are similar to ours. Have any questions or want more information? I'm glad to share. I have a lot of materials that they gave us as well. That's it. For-
Does anyone have any questions for Phyllis about her update? John, do you have anything that you want to add? John filled in for Candace, but she wasn't able to get.
Yeah, John Thomas cab. Candace had a conflict, so I was the Candace for the week. The Portsmouth gas plant, what they're trying to do is reindustrialize 1,000 acres. They've already done 300 acres of that. So it's really interesting that the citizens voted. They wanted it, what they wanted, have it turned over. The Fernald site is a nature preserve, so they've completely cleaned it up and become a nature preserve, and that's now over 1,000 acres for the nature. They're very proud there that they didn't send all their contaminants off-site. They kept them there on landfill. They only sent 15% off what they said. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thanks, John. So just a couple of notes as we go along through the day. We've already covered keeping the microphones closed. You do all have question cards in front of you. If you do have a question, feel free to stand that up. And I'll call on you as we go around. We've got a great agenda today. I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to run through some agency updates, and we're going to hear from all of our committees. We've already heard that they're all recruiting. Get an overview from the National Lab, and we'll be all set for the day. For the most part, we'll also have some draft recommendation. That's something that came from the chair's meeting and product that they worked on, and we'll discuss that a little bit this afternoon as well. Any questions or comments about the agenda for the day before we get going? Okay. Mike?
Okay, great.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Nate?
At the Fresnel site, what did they do with the spent fuel? You said that they didn't put it into the into the reserve. So what did they do with it?
What they did with the contaminants is they landfilled it right there. So they have a big, huge, that a lot of people got off the bus and walked up to the top of the landfill. I didn't.
But they didn't have spent fuel, so a lot of what they're talking about in this case would be the remnants of the buildings that couldn't be broken down, concrete, that sort of stuff. Okay. They had left. Okay. All right. I apologize for interrupting. I just missed Mr. Harvey's card.
Okay, good afternoon. We're happy to be hosting this meeting in this great facility here in Savannah. This area downstream of the site has always been important to us. It's great to be here and have the opportunity to continue to build our relationships. It's a significant milestone today here for this CAB meeting. This is the 30th anniversary of the CAB. It originally met in 1994. A group of citizens began meeting to organize the board. I had a few planning meetings, but the official board meeting was held in May. DOE HQ representative attended in person to deliver appointment letters for those original members from the assistant secretary, and became an officially recognized DOE EM advisory. Over the course of these 30 years, you've held nearly 175 full board meetings, provided 381 pieces of advice and recommendations to the River site, and I expect to be more in the future. So well done. And I do want to give a special welcome to Marty and Patrick, Nate, Scott, and Kevin as our new board members here today. Janie couldn't be with us today, but at the next meeting with Zoom. So welcome to all you new board members. And pretty impressive set of resumes they bring with skills to help us out here. So my updates start with the Advanced Manufacturing Collaborative, which is a facility we're building on the campus at USC Aiken for the Savannah River National Lab to use to non-classified work. And academia projects. And yeah, that's what it looks like It might be actually a little advanced from that today. It's really coming along nicely. It's on schedule to be in use by summer of 2025. So going up very nicely. A little update on transition, a very short update because everything's going along as scheduled. We plan to transition the site to NNSA on October 1st of this year. For those of you not familiar with what transition means, it's really what we do is we hand over to NSA the responsibility to take care of all the hotel services on the site in the main. All the environmental management missions stay with us. 90% of our budget remains with us. NSA will take over security. They will take over one particular area, K area, because they have the majority of the work in there. They take over things like providing potable water, the sewer system, electricity distribution, those kind of common services, all the programs. But all the actual program work remains with the organization. And that's done because NSA's volume of work is going up. They now have more work for the dollars at the site, EM does, and therefore they get to repair the roads and things. And we concentrate just. I'll still be at the site. I still have an office there, and essentially the same thing on October 1st. Nuke materials, L area, we continue to receive fuel shipments from off-site, both foreign and domestic reactors, government-owned material. We take that material and we store it in L area until we're ready to disposition it through H Canyon. And H Canyon's making great progress with what we call the Accelerated Basin De-inventory mission. We had, for the new board members, we had for years done 5 or 6 solutions of spent nuclear fuel, just enough to keep pace with incoming material. We're accelerating that through this Accelerated Basin inventory. The idea is to get the inventory in L Basin as low as we can while the canyon's available. Canyon is tied to the liquid waste program. Liquid waste program take its last, except final material in about 2034. We want to empty L Basin as much as we can while the department determines what the post-liquid waste capability is going to be for taking care of spent fuel. That way we can continue to receive material while that next environment is put in place and not hamstring any other missions. Patrick, you got a question?
I was curious, how many metric tons of waste did we receive last year?
So the spent nuclear fuel, we don't receive waste at the site. The spent nuclear fuel is not classified as waste. Because if you wanted to, you could, through H Canyon, process it and retrieve the good uranium that's still in that fuel. Now, when you process it through H Canyon, you create waste, and that waste goes over to the liquid waste program. I don't know how many metric tons. I don't know if I got somebody here who knows that number, but we get anywhere from 12 to 15 shipments of fuel off-site. Yeah, I'd have to. We'll look up the tons, both the tons we have and how many. Get your number there. Not sure the tonnage.
How long does it take to process?
Well, when we take a load over to process, it takes a few days to run it through the system to process. Well, yeah. So we had planned to do 6 dissolutions this year of this sort, and we have another program where we're going to do another 6 on a different kind. So we think we could get up. We think we could get up to a rate of about 18 dissolutions per year. So you can divide 18 by the number of days in a year, and I guess it takes about. I'm going to do the quick math in public here and say it takes about 20 days.
Now, I'm curious, are we getting on top of the curve or just riding with it?
We're getting ahead of it now.
Getting
Yep,
ahead of
with the ABD mission is getting ahead. And the other thing we're doing in HCAN is starting up the electrolytic dissolver, which was funded by a program we had with Japan to take care of, called fast critical assembly fuel that they had disposed of. We have, in the past, dissolved aluminum-clad fuel. Do that, you put it in hot bath, turns it on. It doesn't work with non-aluminum clad material. You have to run electricity through that. And the Japanese fuel is not clad with aluminum, clad with some other material. And so the electrolytic dissolver, which we had years ago, but haven't had it for a number of years, is capable of processing that material. So we're looking to start that up later this summer, going through all the checks. It's installed, and we're just going through the process of certifying the program to run that. Pay area is where we downblend the excess plutonium that the department has. And we've completed 84 of a planned 120 dissolutions or downblends this year. So they're doing a really good job. And they've executed 15 of 28 shipments out to the waste isolation pilot plant in Carlsbad, New Mexico, so far this year of that material. We've actually sent 27 shipments to WIP, which includes the downblended material and other legacy waste that we've had. So good uptick in the amount of plutonium transuranic waste we've been shipping out of the state. Liquid waste continue to experience, see improvements in their operations as a result of progress in testing and implementing optimizations and process improvements. We're on track to complete the liquid waste mission by 2037. Salt and disposal unit construction continues to exceed expectations. We have proposed to South Carolina DHEC and EPA that we have met the requirements for what we call as preliminary ceased waste removal. It's one of the Federal Facility Agreement milestones we have for the tanks. We believe we've met it for Tank 10. I know we briefed the organizations a week or two ago, and once we get their concurrence, we can move on to the next phase of that. So the team at Savannah River Mission Completion did a superb job of cleaning that tank. Saw the videos afterwards, like a brand new tank practically. Got it exceptionally clean. And that's 7 months ahead of schedule ahead of the commitment for that Federal Facility Agreement milestone. Saltstone disposal units, we completed tanks 8 and 9, met their completion date back earlier this year. And so now we're working on 10, 11, and 12. For 10, all the columns, walls, floors, roof sections, and vertical post tensioning are complete. And it's getting ready for hydroblasting and horizontal pre-stressing, and Shot Creek is underway. I know that's a lot of terms that may not everybody understand. I went to church yesterday and learned about Pentecost. So maybe if I'm speaking, you went to church, you might be translated so you understand it. If not, we'll get additional briefs later. Site SDU 11 and 12 site preparation and supporting work is underway to begin placing the lower mud mat. Salt West Processing Facility processed 1.3 million gallons so far this year, and in total 8.7 million gallons since it was put in operation. When running, it processes at about a 6 million gallon per year rate. The improvements we're working in, the initiatives help improve filtration. We'll be replacing the filters in the springtime with much longer filters with more tubes inside, because they're really the sticking point in the whole system of moving the material through the salt waste processing facility. The other key component in that system is the defense waste processing facility. We produced 23 canisters this year. It has been a little bit of a holdup in our, due to some emergent material conditions that occurred in that caused us to have to shut it down and conduct repairs. But the team is working hard to increase its availability time, which enables us to get closer to 6 million gallons per year rate. Because if the defense waste processing facility is not ready to run, then the salt waste processing facility can't run. Salt waste sends the material to defense waste. Defense waste processing, where we make the glass, is not ready to receive. You can't run the salt waste. Glass waste storage buildings, we've completed double stacking in building number 1 and are working on building number 2. We've modified 51 positions so far. We continue to make strides in tank closure. We're preparing more tanks for preliminary waste removal, which is that milestone I mentioned before. We are required to get that 1 tank done this calendar year, and that's tank 10 that I mentioned. We're 7 months ahead. And then 3 additional tanks may achieve this milestone within a year. So preliminary waste removal makes the tank ready for final closure evaluation in preparation for grouting. We already discussed accelerated pace and de-inventory. One thing we are doing there is the lab and San Diego are collaborating, working on a repository analysis. We want to increase the fizzle loading limits. This is how much fizzle material we can put into a glass canister. This will enable us to accommodate all the ABD material without having to increase in that we make at a defense waste processing facility. Off-site disposal, we've used the high-level waste interpretation program to move material, and this year we successfully shipped a contaminated piece of equipment to the waste control specialist Texas. It's important because this material didn't have a disposition path previously, but with this reinterpretation of high-level waste definition, we're able to ship that stuff to off-site disposal. Some other important things we did, we held the 2024 SRS Ultimate Turkey Hunt with mobility impaired and veterans. 16 hunters participated, 9 turkeys were harvested, 4 hunters achieved their first harvest, and all the turkeys were released for the hunters to take with them. We also did the Ultimate Fishing Challenge, and this was in conjunction with the Outdoor Dream Foundation, which provides events for youth who have either terminal or chronic illnesses to do outside activities. So it's coordinated by the Forest Service, and Centera helps, and many site volunteers. People love volunteering for this one. It's a unique opportunity to go out fishing on Parr Pond, and that's an amazing place to go fishing. Bring a fish in with every cast when you go out there. So the largest bass caught was 6.95 pounds, and the largest 2 combined was 11.75 pounds, and all the fish were released back into the lake after the event. We continue to work F area material storage building 235F, getting ready for demolition and removal of, we are doing demolition, removal of ancillary equipment in preparation for eventual in situ decommissioning. And essentially, we're going to fill that facility with cement. And it is a place where we had done work on plutonium-238. So we, rather than try to tear that down, and we're just going to fill it with cement. And then clean up the clean energy. So we put out an RFQ for solar power on the site. And so we received a number of proposals for that. Those are being evaluated. And there's a common process being used throughout the complex for all the sites to evaluate these proposals, and then hope to get a contractor on site, negotiate a lease with them, and bring solar energy. And the reason we're concentrating on solar first is because it's the only viable path to get to having an equivalent of carbon-free energy usage on the site by 2030. But this week, on Thursday, we're having another industry day to discuss other sources of clean energy besides solar that could be brought to the site. So we'll take a look at what we're going to open it up to those other activities that might bring clean energy. So that concludes my comments, my information I was going to provide. I would note that my newspaper is changing its delivery method from the morning paper coming, starting June the 4th, to the afternoon. As a result, I canceled the receipt of the paper copy I loved, because I read the paper in the morning. So I've had to shift to the electronic version. The positive side of that is when I open up paper on the electronic version, you also get the North Augusta online edition, which, and Phyllis writes columns there. One was all about the cab. But I do have a question for Phyllis. Are you going to allow Oliver to watch the movie The Great Escape? Because I think it would come in handy for him with his new skill at digging, considering that incarceration system Tom recently installed in your yard.
So far, he has not figured that out. He loves to dig, but he digs in the middle of the yard. He hasn't figured out that the fence line is prime for getting where he really wants to go. But this dog is 10 months old. He's had a hard life, too. He's broke his leg and has had 2 surgeries. And
the next thing you know, Phyllis puts a fence all around the poor guy. So.
Yes, well, I just had a conversation with my grandchildren one of my grandchildren said, "Is it true that we are in your column often?" And her sister, who is 11, she's 8, her sister is 11, said, "Yeah, everybody in my class likes the first thing they do is look it up every week." I said, "Oh, well, because I spent my children's entire life and now my grandchildren's lives writing about them with them never knowing. But now they figured out how to get there, so it could get complicated. I could be sued before it's over with, I guess, because I did not get their permission."
All right, I'm ready for your questions now. Then.
All right, we'll start with Hubert.
Thank you, James. Hubert Von Toul, CAB. Mike, thank you for, as always, an excellent presentation. I've got a couple of questions for you. The first one has to do with money. What kind of contingency plans exist for maintaining SRS in case of a complete breakdown in the federal budgeting process?
I have complete faith in the federal budgeting process. Let's state that first. But if something unforeseen should happen, the way most federal agencies operate is at some point years ago, they held back some level of funding, whether it be 10 or 13%, and just roll that over from year to year. So in effect, each year we spend what's appropriated, but that 10 or 13% that was held back gets rolled over. And that will fund you for anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks if there should be a lapse in appropriation, which we haven't seen well, not since I've been here, had a lapse in appropriation. So that would be the first mechanism we go through. And then you step down from there. We do have some employees who would come in even if there was a complete lapse. Certainly security comes no matter what, and they would get, I would imagine they would get their, I can't guarantee, but I imagine they would get their pay caught back up later. So there are contingency plans if that should occur. The normal situation is we get a continuing resolution, which means we get funded at last year's rate. And the only effect that will have on us if we had a new start, we're going to build a new building or start some other new program. You can't start those new programs if they weren't in the prior year's budget already. So that could be some delay in those areas. So,
My second question has to do with the glass canisters. I understand, because of the problem of finding a site disposal, we're stacking them now. When these canisters were designed, was that taken into account at that time in terms of, whether stacking would be safe?
so let me just, we're not stacking because there's not an ultimate disposal site. That wasn't the reason to go to double stacking. The reason to go to double stacking, we always knew how many, we'd have to make about 8,000 canisters, and that the first two buildings, as they were originally constructed, didn't accommodate but about 4,000 canisters, right? But they were designed originally to go into just one silo because they were concerned about what if you drop a canister, what's the heat load from the cesium that's in there? We got to have cooling, airflow, not cooling, but ventilation, airflow in there. So there's a lot of conservatism was built into that design for the one canister per silo. But as we started making canisters and putting them in there, a couple things happened. One, they designed the actual canisters to be far more robust than was considered when the original buildings were designed. So the dropping the canister from that height is just not a concern. They're far more resilient than that. Number two, they didn't generate the heat that was theoretically proposed. So it turned out we could double stack them. And the reason to go to double stacking was to save the taxpayer having to build 2 more glass waste storage buildings. So now we can stack them all within the 2 buildings we have and avoid that cost. So it was really driven by, a more robust design of the canisters. We didn't have the heat load we thought we were going to have, and then we were able to save money by going to double stacking. But it's not related to the eventual disposal site. As you know, it's still not decided, but that didn't drive it back.
Thank you.
Let's go clockwise or counterclockwise around the table. We'll go to John.
John Thomas, Cab. The turkey hunt, did you say they were able to take the turkeys?
Yeah, we survey all the deer, hogs, coyotes, turkeys that are harvested during our hunts on the site. Make sure that they don't have any level of contamination. Okay. As far as I know, we've never found anything that does, and we let them take those animals.
So they're
with
tested
them.
first?
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
good.
But the fish we put back because mercury, other stuff in the water that existed from the time the ponds were built. Plus, it's great fun to have those huge fish out there. So.
Coming all the way around, we'll go to Phyllis.
Actually, I think you just answered the question. I wanted to double check. It hasn't changed. The deer have not been a problem.
They have not.
But the fish still don't release for a number, not just.
Yeah. Yeah, we typically get about 250 deer around that number each year during the hunts.
Thank you.
Yeah, Patrick?
Yeah, I was just wondering, Pat Kilroy, I was just wondering, what is the total liquid waste at SRS?
Oh, do we have to process?
Yeah.
Yeah, it remains, it's a little north of 30 million gallons.
Million?
Yeah, 30 million.
Million.
30.
Okay. And how much are y'all processing here?
Well, we've done 1.3 million this year so far. We brought the system online in 2020, and we've done 8.7 million since then. So, but we've been slowly ramping up the processing each year. So
y'all ramping up?
Yeah.
Y'all project when you'll double the process?
Yeah, we're still on track to finish the mission by 2037. The processing will cease earlier than that. 2037 is the date to close the last tank. I think we finished processing in about 2034.
Are y'all, is there being created more liquid waste?
No, that liquid waste, well, I mean, That's not exactly true. Most of the liquid waste was created by the processing of the materials to create weapons-grade material for the complex, right? When we dissolve the spent fuel in H Canyon, that does create some waste, but it's nowhere near the kind of volume. You know, it's we planned in our system plan to be able to accommodate up to 300,000 gallons from H Canyon each year, but I don't think we even achieve a third of that at this point. So, out of H Canyon. So.
Any more questions? Oh, Candace.
Where do you get your tritium from? Does it come from one source, or do you get it from a number of different sources?
Well, tritium is not my program. That belongs to the National Nuclear Security Administration. But they do expose material in Tennessee Valley Authority reactors and bring those bars back to the site and extract tritium from those bars.
I had more of a comment, James. Candace Cave, Cab. I appreciate the networking opportunity earlier for our new board members, but I also appreciate the addition of the pictures that correlate with what you're talking about, Mr. Budney, because I think for people who, this might be your first meeting, that's not something we normally do. So I appreciate having the photos when you're talking about certain facilities, so that for us lay people, it's very helpful. So thank you for that.
You think I'm glad to take your thanks, Candace, but you know I had nothing to do with it. It's just,
That was Heather.
That's normally how it goes.
That was Heather.
It was all Heather.
Thank you, Heather. Cab team, thank you.
All right. Any other questions from around the table? Seeing none. Thanks, Mike. We'll go over to EPA now. John?
Yeah, again, John Richards with our Region 4 office in Atlanta. Again, mostly for the new cab members that aren't familiar with EPA's role here. I'll be doing one of my annual talks tomorrow where we go through EPA's role in Superfund and how the Superfund apply at Savannah Riverside and all. And again, if you have any questions on that, go through that tomorrow, and our staff, because if you're not familiar with how we fund, we have a lead project manager, as Susan mentioned, the agreement. That's kind of the lead project manager. But we have many, many project managers that work under us, and technical staff and contractors, part of a big team. One of our big EPA new rules that have just come out. If you're not familiar with PFAS, you should be. It's one of our new drinking water levels that will apply to Savannah Riverside. It's more of a big issue at DOD sites, obviously a lot more DOD sites than DOE sites. But at least in our D area, it's already been investigated there, sampled for. They have another round of sampling coming up, and we'll be investigating there with, again, our team of South Carolina and DOE and their contractors of what potential options would be there to address the PFAS in that area. So that's a huge, I guess, win for EPA getting a new rule out, especially this time of the year. But again, it's complicated. So, and I'll mention again tomorrow, but if any of you don't know what it's about, as I mentioned to Avery, I was going to mention here that if anybody wants to talk here at a future CAB meeting, I have lots of people in my office. I'm a radiation expert, far from a chemical expert. But we have lots of people that could do a 15 or 20-minute talk on what they are, what it means to federal facility sites, DOE in particular. And as Mike mentioned, we were recently at Columbia to participated in the high-level waste tank, that's tank 10, preliminary cease waste removal. And that was a very significant milestone for all of us, especially I know DHEC, their permit. But that's our first one since 2016, because again, we've kind of been under a suspension, regrouping, et cetera. for closure of the tanks, and this is the first step toward that goal. And so this is the first one, I think it's in 2016 that got into this level. So we're very excited that that's happening again. And I think with that, that's all for me, unless you have questions.
Any questions for EPA? Candace, do you still have a question? That's a no. Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on down the road. Susan, South Carolina DHEC.
Good afternoon. I'm Susan Fulmer with DHEC. As John mentioned, I'm his counsel for the Federal Facility Agreement Program. There are a lot of things that DHEC does with regards to oversight of Savannah Riverside, and I'll be giving you on that tomorrow in more detail. Some of the recent activities that we've had going on out of our Midlands Aiken office, which Greg is here representing the Aiken office back there. So there was a programmatic meeting to discuss air, soil, and vegetation projects associated with both environmental monitoring programs. That was recently conducted at the end of April. We had some inspections in April as well. The Saltstone monthly inspection was conducted, and that's part of a solid waste permit. And then for our Resource Conservation and Recovery Act or Hazardous Waste Program, there were several documents that they have under review currently. There's the General Information Renewal Application, Sanitary Landfill Post-Closure Renewal Application, the Mixed Waste Management Facility Post-Closure Renewal Application, and the Mixed Waste Storage Building Renewal Application. And so those are all under review by the permitting program, and through their permitting process, they have a public comment period as well, and then within the next few months, you should be hearing more about that one. And then also, as John and Mike both mentioned, for the liquid waste program, we did have the preliminary cease waste removal briefing just a few weeks ago, and that was a very informative meeting, good discussion. Got to give a shout out to SRMC, their contractor, for the, I think, 2.5 hours that they talked nonstop, going through the material, and so that was quite the haul. But it was good information and some very good pictures, seeing the inside of the tank cleaned out. So we did receive the request for concurrence to proceed with sampling and analysis phase for the tank closure process for Tank 10, which is the tank that they're looking to declare preliminary cease waste removal on, and the department will be responding to that correspondence in the next weeks. And that's all for me. Any questions?
Any questions for DHEC from around the table? Going once, going twice. Seeing none. Thank you very much.
James, can I have one and go back?
Absolutely.
Oh. Patrick, I want to make sure I said about 30 million gallons. I always try to use that number because it changes all the time. What we're really tracking is how many curies of radioactivity are left in those tanks, because there's a lot of salt in that tanks. They have to be dissolved. And we say 30 million gallons, but the next day there might be 31 million gallons or 30.5 million gallons, because we have to add water to dissolve the salt. And then we get a lot of water in there. We'll run it through evaporators to evaporate the water. So that number goes up and down all the time about the total, but it's slowly decreasing the total volume. But what we're really tracking is curies, the radioactivity we get out, because that's the harmful stuff that we got to get removed. Eventually, we'll get all the water out. And we don't want to create a whole lot more water as we do the dissolution, so we do have to evaporate the water because we don't want to exceed the capacity of the salt disposal unit tanks at the other end, because we take that 30 million gallons, and by the time we make grout out of it, it's about 90 or 100 million gallons, right? Because you got to add all this water to through that process. So I just want to, if somebody hears a different number later, oh no, it's really 33 million gallons. Oh no, it's a 32 million. You know, it moves around because of that process we're using.
While we're there, though,
Can you do me a favor speaking to the microphone? It's not necessarily for us in the room. We
Okay.
have folks on minutes transcription.
the thing is, though, when you evaporate the water, what goes up? Minute quantities, whatever.
No, I don't think so. These are metals that don't evaporate. Just
nothing.
it's just steam that's coming out. Just H2O. Yep.
And I've already made a note. We're going to send out the liquid waste system plan, the latest version, to everybody. Make sure you get a chance to read it and look through it. And our next meeting in July is actually going to be our deep dive into the liquid waste process. And we're really going to get into the weeds with that in a very real way. Greg?
Just a quick comment. Greg O'Quinn, South Carolina DHEC. Just some clarification and a confession, I guess. Susan had reported a meeting on 4:30, a programmatic meeting. That's actually May 30th, 5:30. And the confession is I gave her the wrong information. That was my fault. So, yeah, that's happening at the end of this month.
Appreciate it. Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns before we move along? All right, seeing none. Let's get into what's going to end up being a very brief committee updates, because committees haven't had a chance to meet yet, and you folks haven't really had a chance to sign up for committees. We'll be doing that after this meeting. Not today, literally. It'll be via email. But you'll get a chance to sign up for the committees that you're most interested in. But I know that many of our chairs are here. We're going to give everybody the opportunity to say something, ask any questions, and then we'll get into our programmatic stuff for the day. So we're going to start with John in facilities disposition and site remediation.
Correct. John Thomas. I'd like to invite everyone next month to our subcommittee meeting, along with my vice chair, Carolyn. So come and join if you're interested in this, and we'll be meeting in June. Thanks.
All right. And Donald Colson is not here today for nuclear materials, but if he were, I'm sure he would make the exact same pitch. Kim, Waste Management, do you have anything for us today?
Kim Ray. Yeah, I've just been reviewing the liquid waste system plan that was revised in 2023. And so once we get committee members, maybe I get a co-chair, we can have a committee meeting and look at what they've put in their plan and talk about potential recommendations.
Sounds good. All right. Hubert? Questions?
Hubert Von Tool, Commissions and Budget. We get to deal with strategic and long-term issues, so this should be a fun committee to be on. And I'm desperate for members. I have drafted a recommendation to submit to the committee, but of course I don't have a committee to submit it to unless I just submit it to myself. So look forward to having you with us.
Subcommittee rule is decisions are made by those who show up. If you show up, you get a decision. All right, and then you'll notice down below we have administrative and outreach, that is blank. We used to have a chair, but she went and got a job somewhere. And so we'll be doing elections this afternoon for a new subcommittee chair for administrative and outreach subcommittee. All right, any questions, comments, concerns? Okay. I know it seems a little bit early for a break, but we're going to do it anyway, because if you're like me, you go, yes, I am ready to start this meeting. Sit down and get 3 minutes into it and go, no, I'm not. And so we're going to give everybody about 10 minutes. If we can be back in our seats at 2:10, and we'll get going. Thank you, everybody. Hopefully we didn't scare people. I will say that's the feeling walking out of the CAD meeting for the very first time is this overwhelming sense of, oh no, what have I done? It's a lot. It can be a lot. But, and obviously, I'm just filling time until we get more people back in the room. Give folks just a chance to get back in.
Ready.
A couple more.
Yeah, the good kids are here.
Good people are here.
Yeah, we're just waiting.
I could hardly classify myself as a good kid.
And yet you're here.
We have 17 cab members. Amy was asking how many we
An overview from the National Lab. We have a series of presentations this year from the National. Some detailed on specific projects and programs, but this is the overview that can help us get a better understanding. Do that today is the director of the National Lab, Dr. Vahid Majidi.
Thanks, James.
Sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is it high enough?
I'll get it.
Hello. Yep, that's great. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody.
Better.
All right. Thank you for having me here today. And my goal is really to tell you a little bit about Savannah River National Laboratory. We'll have additional presentations coming through CAB meeting. Today, I really want to present 3 different types of material to you. I've got 2 videos, one at the beginning, one at the end. And the one at the beginning is a general discussion about the laboratory. The one at the end focuses on one particular program. And in the middle, my presentation is focused very much on some of the work we do for National Nuclear Security Administration, NNSA. And the reason I chose this is because as the site is transitioning to NNSA, I just want to let you know how involved we are with our NNSA customer base, as well as with our EM. We are an EM-sponsored laboratory. So naturally, we work very closely as EM's lab across complex for Department of Energy, as well as within the site. So with that in mind, if you allow me to start with this video.
Science. It's at the center of our daily lives. It helps clean our environment, protect our own data, and strengthen our national security. At Savannah River National Laboratory, we pioneer advances in science and technology that provide solutions. SRNL puts science to work to help protect our environment, serve our national defense, secure our clean energy future, and reduce nuclear threats. More than 70 years of scientific history with worldwide reach and impact in the central Savannah River area along the Georgia-South Carolina border. We're the only national laboratory sponsored by the Department of Energy's Office of Environmental Management. By collaborating with university and industry partners, we're researching and creating better solutions to complex global problems. We provide career opportunities to those who will help advance the science of nuclear waste remediation, clean energy production, and chart the course of our commitment to global security. We want people who bring an energy, who want to take on the challenges that will push the boundaries of what's possible. At SRNL, we put science to work. Join us.
The Department of Energy, Office of Environmental Management, recognizes that successfully completing its legacy environmental cleanup mission requires a well-trained, technically skilled, and diverse workforce. Student internships funded through the DOE EM's Minority Serving Institutions Partnership Program are helping develop the next generation workforce in critical science, engineering, technology, and math-related disciplines. Students attending minority serving institutions are provided the opportunity to complete 10-week summer internship programs aligned with ongoing DOE EM research. Interns work at a host national laboratory utilizing their facilities and equipment under the mentorship of a senior staff researcher while developing critical skills needed for the environmental management's mission.
What I love about mechanical engineering and working at SRNL itself is that all the projects are different. You're never going to do the same thing twice, and they're big, they're massive, and you're doing something that actually matters. It's going to help our nation, it's going to help the site, and you get to work with so many different people. It's just fun. That's the best part about this job. I'm Casey Hendrickson. I'm a mechanical engineer in the advanced engineering team at SRNL. So my job is very broad. However, the best way to explain it is that we are given a problem statement and we design it from scratch. We come for send off to machine shops. We are able to get the parts fabricated. Once those are fabricated, we're handed them back and we get to build them and test them here on site. These last few years, I've been working on this project called HYDEC. HYDEC stands for Hydride, Dehydrating, and Casting. We are all supporting the department, their missions, and everything that they do. So the advice that I can give students is take the risk with STEM. It sounds hard, it sounds scary, but it's fun. Everyone forgets how fun science, technology, engineering, math is. Once you get to apply it and see what differences you can make, it's just, you gotta take the risk.
All right, there's a continuation of this, but we can skip it here. I recommend going to the YouTube channel for Savannah River National Laboratory. There is a series of these fantastic videos. And what really makes laboratory an outstanding place are these folks that work at the laboratory. Today, Savannah Laboratory is a constant that work there. EM National Laboratory, we're the only EM National Laboratory. Department of Energy has 17 national labs, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. So this is not a monologue. Please feel free to stop me anytime and ask questions, and we'll go through the presentation together. All right? So the map on the left-hand side is a Savannah River site, and what I've shown with these little sunshine red two sites in Aiken County outside the fence boundary of the Savannah River site. These are two buildings that we occupy, built by Aiken County, and we are renting those facilities. which the very